December 15th, 1960. Richard Pavlik is arrested after attempting to assassinate JFK, which would be successfully rebooted 3 years later. Welcome to The Revisionists. I'm Brian Flynn.
I'm Zach Powers.
And our guest is returning favorite, friend of the show, Jen Colick.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good. Thank you so much for being here.
And jingle, jingle, jingle.
Jingle, jangle.
Jingle, jingle. You know what that means? It's Christmas, Hanukkah, Eid, Kwanzaa time.
And when you hear them reindeer a-jangling up on the roof, you know, aw shit, Santa's coming down that chimney.
Now, we here at the Revisionists don't like to be denominational in our beliefs, but what all these got in common, if you in the Northern Hemisphere, is that it's cold as fuck. So,
oh my God.
The continuation of Cold Disaster Month, which is our slang for Christmas, Cold Disaster. Last time, you may remember, we talked about the Franklin expedition. Mm-hmm. Certainly, I think you would all agree, a cold disaster.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I think we can all agree.
And we voted ultimately to have the real version of the Franklin expedition be the truth going forward, in part because, unfortunately, Brian's alternate version did not live up to the superior, already kind of alternate version that AMC made earlier this year.
Which I still have not seen, but I did not... I read a recap. It was like the AV Club's top 10 TV shows of the year. And I did not realize it had like a fucking monster in it, I guess.
Yeah, it's already kind of an alternate take. Cause
I thought it was
really
just like British people dying.
Was that based on the, is it Dan Simmons?
I can't remember. It is a novel called...
The Terror or
something? It's called The Terror. I guess it's half nonfiction, half novel, but a fictionalized account, one might say, if one were in the literary community.
Or had an accurate conception of what fiction meant, yes. Because there was no monster.
You do not know this.
Sorry,
I'm with Zach on this one. I mean, prove it.
Sorry, you're right. Of course, teach the controversy, I guess.
2 times. Every time. There's 2 things I always have to tell Brian that he doesn't know. Whether there was a monster on the Franklin expedition and what it's like to be a black man in America. Brian insists he knows both these things, and he knows neither.
Yep, that...
All I'm saying
let's not
is
lead into that.
There's something breaking up the polar ice. Mm-hmm. We don't know what it is.
Of course, it can't be us.
We're not up there.
Yeah, we're not up there.
Hey, I know a little fella named Rod Serling who would say, maybe man is a monster after all. He wouldn't say that. He's dead. He can't say anything. But at one time,
and
perhaps.
Of course, Rod Serling, if he were alive today, based on his political beliefs, would definitely be a climate change denier, I guess.
I don't know anything about his political beliefs during life.
Well, that's fair. Also, listeners, before we get into the meat of this episode, which I realize is a very unfortunate turn of phrase.
For reasons that will become apparent later, unless you read the episode, the name of this episode already, like a normal human.
We, as a little special treat, we are going to start releasing out little droplets of our late... I don't know why I phrased it like that. Jen is giving me a very skeptical look.
I'm just waiting for the end to that sentence. Droplets of what?
Little droplets of... just little beads of our former podcast, The First World Privilege Hour. Just releasing those droplets from our sweat glands.
This podcast was recorded, I'm going to say, 7 to 8 years ago.
I feel like we started in like summer of 2011.
Yeah. We were 22, 23, fresh-faced. Mm-hmm. Probably less aware of what was socially unacceptable. So actually, we're shooting ourselves in the foot by recording this. Probably.
Oh, I'm definitely doing quality control. Or quality, what do I say, half a beer in? Control. Do I make a complete ass of myself?
Half a beer, the dreaded threshold beyond which we lose all inhibition.
I mean, that's what turned Jekyll into Hyde, really, was half of a light beer, I think.
Yes.
A little snifter of chamomile tea, just
I'm onto
right on my ass.
I'm down to the W on this can of Budweiser. All bets are off. Brian said something about hot eats and cool treats, and he said something about meat and treats. Go with me.
Wait, when did I say hot eats and cool? Okay, whatever.
You didn't. That's the Dairy Queen slogan. But you said something about meat and treats.
Yep.
And I think we all know.
That's I'm here to our new sponsor, Johnson's Meat Treats. A very unfortunate brand name.
Have you never heard the phrase hot eats and cool treats?
No, I've heard it. I just didn't know where the fuck it came from.
It's Dairy Queen, baby.
No, I know that, goddammit.
The DQ.
How dare you add baby to that?
This is a fun fact. Dairy Queen was originally called DP. They changed it not for the reason you'd think, but because it stood for none other than Donner Party, where they had the original hot eats and cool treats.
Okay.
And that's what we're discussing in our second and final episode of our cold disaster run.
But get ready, there's going to be some temperate disasters coming up as I still do some research.
Yeah, we already did Dyatlov Pass, folks, so...
the original cold disaster.
Yeah, that's another cold disaster.
But yes, the ill-fated Donner Party. I'll be doing the alternate history, and Jen Colick is going to be doing the actual. Hey there, this is Brian, reminding you that The Revisionist is supported by listeners just like you. You can make a pledge and get rewards like shirts and even the right to vote over at patreon.com/therevisionists.
I'm still kind of stuck on meat treats.
So is the nation, according to Steakums. Steakums brand meat treats. Steak,
That's actually a great lead-in.
They really shat the bed on that catchphrase, huh? Steakums. Steakum, question mark.
Yeah, that was really when Don Draper was dying of cirrhosis. Sorry.
So the Donner Party was the worst disaster in wagon train history.
Other than the musical Wagon Train.
Was that a real thing, or did...
No, that's
There's a musical called Paint Your Wagon.
Paint Your Wagon is a classic. Wagon Train was just the basis for Star Trek. Sort of. Anyway, sorry. I'm a monster.
This has been our now weekly edition of Musical Theater, the podcast.
So this is a long and terrible story. In case you didn't know already, it is basically, what did I write in my notes here? Greedy, dishonest men convinced them to take a dangerous route that was not suited to their mode of transit, i.e., wagons full of children and old people. But the party also continued when they should have turned back. And they also turned on each other when they should have banded together. Yay, rugged individualism. So that's about where we are, guys. So we're in the 1840s. We are, Oregon Trail days. People are going out to settle in the Oregon Territory and in California. Many were inspired by the idea of manifest destiny, a philosophy which asserted that the land between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans belonged to European Americans, and they should settle it.
And the rest of them were inspired by the Phantom Planet song California, from what I understand.
Yeah, they got that OC soundtrack blaring in the wagon with the ground effects going.
That's the saddest. The idea of the Donner Party about to kill and eat each other with California Here We Come playing.
Really, it was preferable to being alive at that point, because really the tape is stuck.
I would actually agree.
Yeah.
Well, considering everything else that comes in between that also. So most wagon trains on the Oregon Trail traveled about 15 miles a day, and the journey usually took 4 to 6 months. So keep that in mind as we go forward. Average 15 miles a day. 1-5. So the regular Oregon Trail basically went through Wyoming and Idaho into Oregon. There was a point in Idaho where you could kind of veer south through Nevada and also get to California. That was kind of the California Trail.
Otherwise known as the Idaho cheat code.
Yes, exactly.
The Idaho, fuck this. I don't want to be in Idaho anymore.
Exactly. Too much. No one wants to be in Idaho for that long. So this was the Donner Party's original plan. They were going to take the Oregon Trail into Idaho and then go south to California. They didn't do that. So the other thing we should say up top, the most difficult part of this journey to California was the last 100 miles across the Sierra Nevadas. They received more snow than most other ranges in North America because they're so close to the Pacific Ocean, and the eastern side of the range is hella steep. There were signs warning of this.
Hella steep.
Like, hella steep fucking trails ahead.
Mad snow, yo.
Exactly. So the timing of the trip was really important.
SMH. Sorry.
So the timing of the trip was really important to make sure that you wouldn't get stuck in the goddamn snow in the mountains during the winter. You had to also budget time to like feed your horses and your oxen. You need to block out time to bury people who died on the trail, etc.
And of course, 2 hours for self-care every day. Mani Petty. That thing where you put cucumbers on your eyes? I'm not sure what.
I think that's just a facial.
Yeah.
A facial. There you go. That's what it is.
I mean,
I don't live a life of luxury. I've never had a massage.
it's based on the ancient Greek practice of putting coins on their eyes to pay Charon to ferry you across the river Styx.
Oh, but Charon obviously is on some kind of paleo diet.
Yeah, Charon does keto. That's not a lot of people know that about Charon. This is the dumbest thing I've ever said. Not really, but it's up there.
So enter Lansford Hastings, who is our main villain. So I like to picture him in a top hat with a twirly mustache.
Lansford. I did not.
Lansford. Mm-hmm.
Lansford. Okay.
So he went to California in 1842 and decided that he deserved to make a shitload of money off the current migration. So he published a book called The Immigrant's Guide to Oregon and California, which included his very own alternate trail through the Wasatch Mountains and across the Great Salt Lake Desert. Great Salt Lake Desert.
The three most hospitable words in the English language.
By the way, Lansford Hastings himself had not actually traveled this route that he was recommending other people take.
I envision it almost like the way like Dan Aykroyd branded that Crystal Skull vodka, where it's just like he licensed his name to it.
Basically, yes.
More or less.
This is exactly what Lansford Hastings did. He didn't travel any part of this trail until 1846, when he went to Fort Bridger, which was a small supply station run by our secondary villain, Jim Bridger, in Wyoming. Fort Bridger wasn't actually a fort, it was just some little shit-ass town that this asshole named after himself, apparently. So, Hastings stayed...
everyone is faking it until they make it.
These are the worst people. For real.
I feel like it was pretty fucking easy to fake it back in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
1800s.
Before
Like,
they-
if you had, like, a bow tie and nice shoes, you could pass for a doctor. It was fine.
I mean, that's basically how today works. Like, on all this Instagram stuff and. Anyway.
Yeah, well, Instagram is the Wild West of, the modern times, which is why
Anyway.
there's so much cannibalism on Instagram. That take a picture of your meal, and it's almost always long pig.
So Hastings set up shop at Fort Bridger to persuade travelers to turn south and take his route, which of course which sucked. It was a terrible route. He actually started sending letters further east on the Oregon Trail to convince people who were coming west to take his new route. Like, it was almost like the 1840s version of, like, junk mail.
Did he get a fucking nickel every time somebody took this route? What does he have to gain from this?
I have no, I was never able to figure out, how he was making money from it. Jim Bridger wanted people to take this route because it would take people through his shitty little general store.
Oh, I see.
So he stood to profit. I think Lansford Hastings just wanted to be, famous or something. He probably had a small penis. Anyway. So a group of 9
The
wagons.
fourth penis inch had not been invented at this point, actually. So
What?
the fourth penis inch. Just that extra. Really, they're Homo superior.
Thank God we live in 2018 where we're up to 5.3. The current maximum allowable amount.
Of course, gentlemen, yearly reminder, if you are over 5.3 inches, get a bagel guillotine. Anyway, anywho.
A bagel guillotine.
Chop your dicks off.
They have cigar choppers that I think would
Chop
serve the
your dicks
purpose.
off. Sorry, I have my last final today, so my brain is pudding right now.
I mean, I have a pocket knife. We don't need to make this complicated,
Well,
guys. We could just take care of it right now. We don't need any fancy equipment.
Fancy.
They
bagel
didn't have any of those fancy bagel choppers on the wagon train. I'll tell you that.
They could have made some locks or something.
They
Again,
had
I
them.
recommend one of those cigar clippers. But it's true. Partial castration is easier than you think. Look out for our new podcast coming March of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
We test various... All right.
It's called Foreskin Loco. I couldn't think of yeah. The more the merrier. There we go.
Nice. Okay. So a group of 9 wagons containing 32 members of the Reed and Donner families and their employees left on May 12th. George Donner was 60 years old, which back then was basically 100.
Mm-hmm. Adjusted for inflation.
Exactly. So with him were his wife Tamsin and their 5 daughters.
So
George's
Tamsin, when she was born, her parents were just like... They had a boggle set, basically.
They just reached into a Scrabble bag and are like, Well, we got 6 blank tiles.
and a Y.
And a Y. Oh,
We're gonna throw
Y.
that one out.
Oh,
no,
okay.
there's no Y.
Tamsin. Fuck that.
I kind of dig Tamsin, even though, no spoilers. Okay. George's brother Jacob also joined with his wife Elizabeth and their billion children. Also traveling with the Donner brothers were half a dozen Teamsters. So every family is a group of 20 fucking people, and half of them are children under 10. This is basically the rule going forward.
So it's like the first 10 minutes of Home Alone, basically.
Yes, that's exactly, honestly, yeah. Less pizza, but yes. So,
and of course, one of them had a talk boy. So,
yeah.
Sorry.
So James Reed and his wife Margaret also joined this party with their billion kids. And Margaret Reed's...
So far there are about 2.5 billion people.
Yes.
Most people don't know that the Donner Party was the single biggest catastrophe to ever occur on the planet Earth.
Sorry.
It was really like when the Donner Party disaster happened, it was kind of like the plague of the 1840s where like a third of the population died because there was just everyone was on this fucking wagon train. So also Margaret Reed's 70-year-old mother joined them. She was in advanced stages of consumption, and she died on May 28th, like 2 weeks into the trip. And they just buried her along the side of the trail.
Oh, wow.
Sort of like bringing it back again to those kind of Christmas movies, but the first vacation, what's-her-face dies in the middle of the movie.
Yep.
But at least she misses the worst part of the trip.
This is not even the middle of the movie, though. There's also a guy with tuberculosis who dies like before the worst part of this trip. So maybe he's the mom character. I don't know. I've never seen Vacation. So here's one thing I really wanted to point out. So several other families joined the wagon train along the way. Lavina Murphy, who is 37. She is a widow from Tennessee. She likes long walks on the beach, and she has a family of 13. Her 5 youngest children range in age from 8 to 16. And her 2 married daughters and their families also came along with her. So her elder daughter, who's 19, and her family, as well as Harriet Murphy Pike, who's 18, her 32-year-old husband, and their daughters ages 1 and 3. So let's do some math here. Because I want to point out, Lavina had her first child when she was 12. She is 37 and she has a 19-year-old daughter. So she's probably a widow because she fucking murdered her husband.
Yeah, and then she did that 6 more times?
Yes. Well, and also, so Lavina's daughter Harriet had her first child when she was 15. Like, I know people like to kind of romanticize the Oregon Trail probably because of the stupid video game, but like these women, their vaginas were destroyed. They were completely fucking destroyed. Like Lavina probably couldn't pee anymore like normally, and she wasn't even 40 yet.
Jesus.
Like that's what happens after too many kids is like your parts don't work down there anymore. It's horrific.
It's time to mention our other sponsor, Planned Parenthood of the Rockies.
Yes. Please plan your parenthoods and don't be nice to your vaginas, everyone.
And if you want to have an excessive number of kids, our other sponsor is Cesarean Sections. Do you need to kill Macbeth today? Cesarean Sections.
So there were about 20 other people with very small children, including an infant who was born on the goddamn trail. In this wagon train. There is also our friend Luke Halloran, a young man who seemed to get sicker with tuberculosis every day. He was passed from family to family as no one could spare the time or resources to care for him. He was literally like a hot potato with tuberculosis. Like, no one wanted this guy around, and he was basically dying, and they were all just like, nope, we don't have time to take care of you, go away. Go bother the Reeds. Like,
Jesus.
Yeah. So
also,
there were
hot potato with tuberculosis no longer available at Wendy's. Not on their dollar menu.
Not after the incident. No.
The tuberculosis incident.
Exactly. So there were literally 2 billion people in this fucking wagon train. And this fuck up Hastings, basically, he got the Donner Party to cut south through Utah and go through the Hastings Pass. He said it was easier, but it actually added 150 miles to their trip. So he's a liar, and we don't like him. Also, a journalist further along the trail saw that it would be really difficult for wagons, especially carrying a shitload of old people and children, to make it through the Hastings Pass, and he tried to send letters back along the trail warning the Donner Party, but the letters didn't reach them. And this journalist said later he believed that the trading post owner deliberately concealed the letters, which would not surprise me. Also, hooray for capitalism.
Why are people so invested in this fucking trail?
Well, the trading post owner, like, the way that it was set up was like, if you were going through the Oregon Trail, you wouldn't pass by his trading post unless you were going south through the Hastings Pass. So he didn't want anything negative about this shitty trail to be seen by anyone. He wanted people to take this trail to give more shitty money to his shitty store. So the Donner Party picked up even more people and then left Fort Bridger on July 31st, 1846. George Donner was well liked, so he was elected wagon train president or captain or whatever.
Wagon train president.
I don't know how this shit works.
Oh man, he definitely made himself a sash that said that on it.
Yeah, I could see that, actually. Well, top
Wagon
hat of his
train
own.
president.
Yeah. So the Oregon Trail was well-established, well-worn, and had a lot of traffic, and so it was easy to keep track of it. The Hastings Pass literally was marked by letters that Hastings tacked onto trees. Some places, they lost the trail or had to make it as they went, which meant clearing brush, cutting down trees, and moving fucking boulders. There was literally, not only was it like a shitty pass, but like there was no trail on a bunch of it. It was just like not a real thing. So the Wasatch Mountains were actually terrible for wagons. So a lot of them broke. Within days of turning onto the Hastings Death Pass, the Donner Party realized it was much more difficult than they had anticipated. But they still kept going. At one point, Hastings promised to come and lead them through some of the roughest terrain, and then he fucking didn't. He just didn't. He didn't even try.
He had a thing.
So they were progressing at about 1.5 miles a day. Remember, they should have been moving 15 miles a day, or 10 times as fast as they were actually moving.
The lightning quick speed of 15 miles a day.
Yes. I mean, at the time,
of course. Like,
they were breaking the fucking sound barrier. You know?
At the time, the right stuff kept playing in the background.
Exactly.
People were like, I don't know if we were meant to go this fast.
Old ladies were like cowering in the back of the wagon. It's too fast. I don't know what's happening. Sorry. So Reed was originally the one who wanted to take the stupid fucking Hastings Pass, and people were pissed at him, but he still somehow convinced everyone to keep going. They could have turned back, and they kept going. So the Graves family, who had even more fucking small children, caught up to the Donner Party around this time, which brought the Donner Party to about 90 people and about 70 wagons. And our friend Tuberculosis Luke, who no one had time to care for, died around this time. So really, like, before things got really bad, like, things were kind of shitty, and then he died and he missed the worst of it.
Also, to be fair, do you need 70 wagons for 90 people? You pack light? Like, you don't need to bring all your Funko Pops, fucking Donner Party. Throw a few away. They're garbage. They all look the same. They suck. You don't need them.
They're not going to appreciate in value. Like, that's a trick. Like,
funnily enough, this comes up later. So it was early September by the time they got out of the living hell of the Wasatch Mountains, and they went straight into the Great Salt Lake Desert. Again, the fucking desert with a lake made of salt. So there was no water.
Name.
Yeah. There was no water, there was no grass for the oxen. The wagons kept getting stuck in the soil because it was full of salt and it was like gluey almost. Insanely hot during the day, freezing during the night. Everyone was fucking miserable. 9 of Reed's 10 oxen broke free, crazed with thirst, and bolted off into the desert. So, he got what was coming to him, I guess.
Yeah.
Hastings had told them that it would be 40 miles and it would take 2 days, and instead it was 80 miles and it took 6 days. So animals and broken wagons were being abandoned, and poorer families were running out of food. And no one else would share with them. They were just like, tough shit. So they took a week to recuperate at a spring on the other side of the desert. Some men left to try to get ahead to California to get more supplies because they would move faster without a fucking wagon and like 8 babies. Everyone was running low on supplies, especially the Reed family. The whole time, the party is becoming so angry with Hastings, but they're too deep in, and they have no choice but to keep following him and his stupid fucking letters that he leaves, like, ahead, as he's ahead on the trail.
Of course, because he's been elected to a 4-year term, so...
Yeah. And he's got, like, this big, like, ugly pony, and he has so much food... And he keeps leaving in the letters, like, oh man, do you guys want some burgers? Like, I have some burgers. If you catch up to me, I'll share my burgers with you. There's like barbecue sauce on the letters. They're just really mad at him because he's such a dick. So on September 26th, they rejoined the traditional trail to California. They had spent 2 months in this shortcut from hell, and they were actually a month behind schedule. So they split up into smaller groups hoping to make better time, and Reed got into a fight with one of the other men, stabbed him, and was banished from the wagon train. So, which, again, becomes relevant later. So, literally, like, he's the one who convinced everyone to take this shitty non-shortcut, and then he stabs someone and gets banished.
That's what gets him banished. Also.
That's what gets him banished. Spoiler alert, he fucking survives. I just feel like I want to make that clear right now. This asshole, he's like the 3rd place villain, survives.
Oh yeah, 3rd place villain always survives for some reason. That's the sequel juice right there.
Yeah. So now it's mid-October, there's lots of small splinter groups, everyone's pissed and hungry, and winter is coming. The animals have become so weak that most people are walking. Remember, this includes women who are nursing infants, which makes you exhausted because they are literally sucking the life force out of you for their own survival.
I mean, when you say it like that, it seems...
I mean, it's literally the thing that happens, you know. Happy to do it, help yourself, you know, but that's what happens. You have no fucking energy. Exactly. One group abandoned a 70-year-old man because he couldn't continue walking. Yeah. Like, people start turning on each other and acting really terrible towards each other, and it gets really hard to feel bad for them after a while. So one of the men who went ahead to find more supplies returned with 2 mules, food, and 2 Native American guides. The idiots of the Donner Party prepared to cross the Sierra Nevadas thinking they had been through the worst. It was like, oh, a ray of hope. Someone is coming to help us. We'll be okay. No. Just, no. Paiute Native Americans started stealing and or shooting all of their remaining livestock. There were families with no livestock left. They had to abandon their wagons. There were families with small children who ran out of food, and other families refused to help them. They were like, sorry, your children are starving. Ours are fat and happy. Fuck you. Like, it brought out the worst in people. So snow came about a month earlier than expected in the Sierra Nevadas, and the east face of the range, as we said, was, what did I say? Hella steep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Worse than the Wasatch Mountains. The families rested, someone was accidentally shot, and then one by one they all got up and left. Someone was like cleaning his gun and accidentally shot someone. And then everyone was just like one by one. They're like, all right, it's time to go. That's, I guess, the signal we were waiting for.
Before this, I was okay. But
right.
This is the last straw.
The Donner family was the last group to leave, and George Donner cut his hand at this point. He got a cut on his hand. All the other families in the party made it 1,000 feet up the cliff face before the snow got really bad, and they found a bunch of shacks near Truckee Lake left by other pioneers. When I say shacks, I really mean like piles of wood with a hole in the top.
Jesus.
Yeah. Where was I? Of the 60 people in this group, 29 were children. The Donners stayed at the base of the mountain. They put up some shitty tents for the 21 people in their party, including 12 children, and then there was an 8-day snowstorm. It was the worst. So the food ran out, the oxen died, no one knew how to fish or hunt. No one knew how to fish or hunt.
Jesus.
Like,
one guy managed to kill a bear, and then nothing.
To be fair, that's a pretty good get, though. If you're going to kill something.
I know,
bear?
I know.
I mean, also, how do you have 90 people in 1840 and, like, none of you...
Yeah.
Like, they're all me, and they don't know how to survive.
And they're all like, oh, let's walk across the wilderness for 6 months and just assume everything will be fine.
Ugh.
Yeah. So, people in the Reed Party were charging each other to eat each other's dead oxen. They were like, well, if you want to eat my dead ox, you got to give me $25. Literally, this is what they were starving. And they were haggling over, like, food that people needed to survive. So I don't feel bad for some of these people. They're awful. Several small parties tried to reach the summit of the mountain on foot, but none really succeeded. Conditions were too difficult, and also everyone was fucking starving. Which I hear is very tiring. So, after November 20th, people started eating glue made from boiled oxhide. This is a quote from Wikipedia. Bit by bit, the Murphy children picked apart the oxhide rug that lay in front of their fireplace, roasted it in the fire, and ate it.
The rug.
Yeah. The rug. So Jacob Donner died, George's hand was infected, and men started confessing to murders on their deathbeds, which I bet was pretty fucking juicy, honestly.
Yeah, gotta get them deets near the end.
So several parties attempted to leave on foot to find food, only have to turn back. One of these parties, historians call it the Forlorn Hope. This is kind of where all hell broke loose. They got lost in a snowstorm. One man stripped off his clothes, ran away, and came back later and died. Like, he literally just lost his fucking mind.
Just like the idea that he came back and was just like, well, that was crazy. And then...
Which, it would be funny, except I gotta, stab this balloon here. That is probably the terminal stages of hypothermia.
Yeah, I have heard that is like stripping away your clothes is not uncommon for people who are dying of cold.
Yeah. I think there was someone who did that in the Dyatlov Pass also. Yeah. Bringing it back around, guys. What else? Children died, people froze to death. This was the first incidence of cannibalism. The remains of the dead were divided up so that no one had to eat one of their relatives. Some refused to participate, and eventually, after the small party was lost on the mountain for nearly a month, 2 men who were close to dying of starvation were shot and eaten. The survivors of this small party were eventually rescued by Miwok Indians and farmers in the Sacramento Valley. So they actually made it out. They stumbled onto a Native American camp, and the people in the camp, the starving Donner Party people, were actually so rough looking and so haggard, and that the natives actually ran away when they first saw them because they were just like, oh my god, what's you people don't look right.
Noped out of there real quick.
Yeah, it was terrifying. But eventually they were like, oh, you need help. Here, we'll share our food with you. What a fucking concept. And they got them down the mountain into the valley. And there was a small village of farmers who were like, oh, you're starving. We'll help you. Yeah, I wonder why more people don't fucking do that. Anyway, so meanwhile, James Reed had made it through the Sierra Nevada mountains in late October. This motherfucker has been in California the whole time. He begged men at Sutter's Fort to help rescue his friends and family, and they wouldn't. The Mexican-American War was going on. He had to agree to join the army in order to get anyone to help him.
Man, stop loss is not a new policy, it turns out.
No, it is not. So a bunch of men went to look for the Donner Party on the western slope of the mountains, but no one was there, obviously, and the path to the other side was blocked by snow. They did find and help a different couple who were also trapped and starving. Just by coincidence. Most able-bodied men were off fighting the Mexican-American War, so there were only 3 volunteers to help rescue the Donner Party. Flooding, rivers, and snowstorms delayed rescue efforts. So it's kind of like it's one thing after another where like, oh, we're going to try to help. And then like, nope, snowstorm. And then, oh, we have volunteers. And then fucking flooded river. On February 18th, the first wave of people were rescued. So it's been like 2.5 months that they're stuck here. Some adults and children had to be left behind because they were too weak to travel. Quote from Wikipedia, 23 people were chosen to go with the rescue party, leaving 21 in the cabins at Truckee Lake and 12 at Alder Creek, which is where the Donner family were. 2 of the Reed children were too weak to cross the snowdrifts, and no one was strong enough to carry them, so Margaret Reed had to accompany her 2 older children down the mountain and leave her 2 frailest at the lake without a parent because, of course, her husband left them behind. He got himself exiled. So upon their return to the lake, the Breen family flatly refused entry to the cabin. Like, they wouldn't let the children in. The starving, parentless children. After one of the rescuers offered the Breens more food, the children were grudgingly admitted. Like, to the very bitter end, people are like, no, I'm not helping your fucking starving children. Go fuck yourself. Oh, you have more food? Oh, I guess they can come in. Like, so anyway, what else? Oh, some of the rescued people died on the way down the valley. On March 1st, a more experienced group of rescuers returned to Truckee Lake. The 2 Reed children that were initially left behind were rescued. In one cabin, our friend Lavina Murphy was caring for her 8-year-old son and the 2 other young children. She had deteriorated mentally and was nearly blind. Also, she probably ate someone. That was just a little reading between the lines on my part. Okay. Pretty sure she ate someone.
It was the fact that she had a bib with a person's picture painted on it.
Exactly.
That's really the giveaway.
Yeah. So the first 2 members of the relief party to reach the Donner camp saw one man carrying a human leg. When they made their presence known, he threw it into a hole in the snow.
I'm just picturing him just like, and then whistling and like walking away.
Yep.
Just keeping it cash.
The hole in the snow also contained the mostly dismembered body of Jacob Donner. Inside one of the tents, Elizabeth Donner refused to eat, although her children were being nourished by the organs of their father. This is what Wikipedia says. Like, how poetic. These children are cannibalizing their dead father. It's very nice. The rescuers discovered that 3 other bodies had already been consumed. In the other tent, Tamsin Donner was okay, but George was very ill because the infection had reached his shoulder. So he had like a cut on his hand, and it's just like slowly eating him, basically. The second rescue party evacuated mostly children. Tamsin, George, our girl Lavina, and a few others had to wait for a third rescue party. Some of the second rescue party stayed behind at the camps, and Tamsin offered one of the men money to take her children on to California. The men took the kids, left, abandoned them by the lake. Yeah, the kids were later found alive.
Okay.
But this guy was there to rescue them, and she was like, please, like, just take my children. Like, I'm too weak. I'll give you money. Like, please, I'm desperate. And he's like, oh, okay. And he, like, takes the money and just abandons them further down the trail and, like, gets the fuck out. So, later days, Tamsin. The third relief party, some kids that were left behind had died, and one was eaten. Tamsin stayed with her husband, even though she knew no one else was coming anytime soon. she stayed because he was too sick to move, I think, and she was just like, I can't leave him. She has kind of a dumb name, but I like her.
Yeah, like one of the only people in the story with any sense of like selflessness or
yeah, or like even like trying to take care of anyone at all. So on April 10th, this is like, so months and months have gone by. A salvage party from Sutter's Fort set out to see what they could recover. They were intending to, like, whatever they could find of Donner's possessions, they were going to, like, sell them and use the money to, like, support all the Donner orphan children, basically. They found George's body. He had died only a few days earlier.
Oh, fuck.
He held out. He was, like, basically 100. And he held out for so long with, like, a shitty arm and, like, everything.
Yeah, shitty arm was the leading cause of death in the 1840s, actually.
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the technical term for gangrene, right?
Shitty arm. Yeah, shitty armus. Actually, I think that's a Harry Potter spell. Never mind.
Yeah.
So the salvage party found a man named Louis Kessberg alive. He's the one who ate the child. It was one of Mr. Reed's children, and he basically like told him like, "Hey, if I ever see you in California, I'm gonna fucking kill you." And then two other survivors of the party, like years later, convinced him like not to do it. I mean, I think he probably should have. Mm-hmm. Reed was an asshole, but like this guy ate his kid. There's really nothing, you know.
Mm. Yeah, no, you're totally canceled after that.
Yeah. So this character...
Classic cancel culture. You eat one kid, they pull your HBO show.
Oh, yeah, drag me.
No second chances, right?
Lena Dunham eats one child.
So, Louis Kessberg, whatever, this child eater... he said Levita and Tamsin were also dead. He also had a cache of money, pistols, and jewelry, and a human meat stew going when the salvage party found him. So he talked his way out of some good old frontier justice and made it to the fort on April 29th. That's pretty much it. He was the last one to reach the fort. He was the last person out of the Donner party. Of the 87 people who entered the Wasatch Mountains, 48 survived. Only the Reed and Breen families remained intact. The children of Jacob Donner, George Donner, and Franklin Graves were orphaned. One guy, like most of his family, died, and there's actually some really interesting stuff on Wikipedia about how the news of this spread, where a lot of the newspapers actually initially really downplayed the whole tragedy. Mm-hmm. It was like, oh, like, you know, you get 100 words on page like 12B or whatever, because Manifest Destiny was like this huge national ideal and it was big business, and they had all these stories in the papers about like idealizing the journey west, and they didn't want to like, mm-hmm. you know, have bad news and this horrible tragedy.
Between Hastings and Bridger and the newspapers downplaying the tragedy, the real villain in the story is capitalism.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and also, so the Wikipedia article actually goes on to mention, like, but despite the newspapers, like, downplaying all of this stuff, travel west actually fell off very sharply after the Donner Party, like, tragedy happened, but it's mostly blamed on the Mexican-American War. Mm, yeah. Because, you know, it was a war.
Yeah. Also, you can't spell capitalism without cannibalism. A little bit.
They're a slant rhyme, I guess.
Canbitalism?
Hell yeah. Exactly. Anyway, so, this is Chapo Trap House. Sorry.
Oh no, we're gonna go ahead and that's the story. Because we're on Chapo Trap House now, here's some pre-scheduled misogyny for you.
Yep.
Do I
Fuck
even
that
want to know what that is?
No, it's
Okay.
not worth
It's a podcast from what is called, quote, The Dirtbag Left.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Basically, they use socialism as a way to excuse.
Their hot takes, yeah.
Yeah. Basically, their hot takes and their cold,
They're cool
calculating-
treats,
Yeah.
I believe.
No, they're very little treats. Anyway, Jen, thank you.
You're welcome, I guess. That was a terribly depressing story.
Leaves
But I had fun
Brian-
reading about it.
Hello, everybody. I'm JD Lopez, the host of Left Hand Right Brain. It's a free flowing, wide ranging conversation that I have with artists doing interesting and creative things here in Denver and beyond. We talk about their personal stories, break down their creative process, and what motivates them. Spoiler alert, it's mostly spite. We talk about all these things and more while kicking back, cracking wise, and always having a good time. You can find old episodes and everything you need to know at lefthandrightbrainpod.com.
To fill us in on a different take on the Donner Party.
And this is just, the Donner Party is a mix of tragedy and cruelty. I don't want to mess with that too much.
No, it's a good combination. Why ruin it?
Yeah.
Brian,
Right.
if there's one thing he loves, it's tragedy, cruelty, and saying he knows what it's like to be a black man in America.
Those are three things, first of all. And that's not my
Well,
primary
the tragedy and cruelty
objection.
are one. You like them in concert with each other.
Yeah, it's a hot eat and a cool treat, baby. I want to focus on a couple little-known characters in the saga. First of all, there is an older Donner offspring, 20-year-old Madeline Donner. She comes into play later. But our main character is Rollo the Rat, who was the black sheep of his family.
Sometimes he was walking there.
Wait, what?
It's Ratso. The name reminded me of Ratso Risso. Is what I'm saying.
Rollo's parents, Whiskers and Nibbles, risked...
Wait, is this literally a rat?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's the alternate history, baby. Whiskers and Nibbles risked everything to bring Rollo and his 204 siblings to California.
Yeah. You know, I really think this third chapter of An American Tale took a dark turn.
So they bring them to the Sierra Nevadas to California to start a new life. Foraging on better farms and just living out west. Eke out a living if they could. But Rollo wanted more for his little rat self. Rollo wanted to be a chef. He felt out of place. This is the moment where there'd be in a Disney movie, there'd be a classic "I Want" song.
Like a Disney movie, for example, Ratatouille, a Disney movie.
I'm not familiar with that motion picture. An "I Want" song,
Part of your world.
"Rat's the Power of Love" or "Rats All Folks."
Yeah, or that one where Aladdin talks about how he's a street rat, but he's not really.
Yeah, exactly. One day, Rollo's out singing a song, wishing he could cook, and he crests a hill, and he sees the Donner Party encamped below. And Rollo realizes he's been out all day, he's kind of hungry, and he sneaks into the camp to try to steal some victuals. The head... for some reason, I wrote the head Donner, George Donner.
President Donner.
Yeah, President Donner, president of the wagon train, tries to smash him with the cast iron skillet. A fight ensues. It's not really a fight, it's a rat and a dude. But Rollo sort of gets the better of him, climbs up on George's head, and starts tugging on his hair, and realizes, oh, I can control George's movements. Makes him, hit himself a couple times. And so Rollo realizes he has control, and this is a chance to realize his dream. So he started with Patrick Dolan, which turned him into a nice Boeuf Bourguignon, French classic.
Yeah, of course.
Jay Fosdick came next, turned him into Jay à Poivre.
Now, does Peter O'Toole try any of these and have a flashback to his childhood?
Hang on. So things are going pretty good for Rollo. He's finally, getting his little paws into the world of fine dining. And that's when cannibal restaurant critic Marcel du Portlong, God damn it.
If that's a French joke, I don't speak that shit.
It is French for long pig.
Okay.
Portlong comes up, and this is this is the guy. He's a known hard-ass cannibal critic. And so Rollo pulls out all the stops. He takes Madeline Donner and prepares not a fancy dish, but a simple, heartfelt peasant dish. Something that speaks of home.
Yeah, a dish
Something
made
earthy.
from a peasant, I think you mean.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
It's just a roast with a nice pain jus, caramelized onions, potato gratin, and he serves it to Portlong, and as soon as
Wait, is this guy's name Pork Long?
yeah, I looked it up for the French translation for long pig. I wish it was
You could
something
have just made that up.
I could
Yeah.
have.
Are you
But-
sure you didn't?
But really, I went the extra mile.
Did you accidentally go to the thesaurus instead of the Google Translate, Brian?
My Duolingo is not really doing well. And as soon as Portlong takes a bite of Madeline, he's hit with a wash of memories. A walk along a hedgerow, a lover reclining in a garden, a bite of cookie fresh from the oven.
Cookie is a person.
Yes, of course. Cookie was the cook in the camp. Shout out to my Aunt Cookie. So Portlong is so moved by this emotional connection he feels to the dish that he gives Rollo a 5-star review in the Cannibal Post Dispatch, which is now a part of the Tribune Media Company, and has since made the pivot to video.
I think Sinclair might have bought it. No,
Oh, no.
It's really gone downhill.
Yeah, it's weirdly conservative now in the Cannibal Post Dispatch. So Rollo moves to Paris, finally, and his family would have been proud, but half of them were eaten by bobcats.
And the other half were eaten by the rest of the Donner Party.
Exactly. And that's when, flying high above the Donner Party, Santa Claus in his sleigh, looking for a name for his newly crafted reindeer, looks down and was like,
Really tack this one on the end.
yeah. And then many years later, far to the south, a lawyer for Disney hears this and decides it's not worth the time. So that is the alternate history of the Donner Party.
And then, of course, years later, Santa would need a name for another reindeer, and of course would fly over the White House just as the Watergate hearings were going on. Say!
I'm trying to think of someone named Rudolph also.
There's probably like a Nazi named Rudolph somewhere.
Rudolph Hess, I think.
Giuliani.
Yeah. The Nazi who said
Yes,
sorry.
Giuliani.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Who's kind of a Nazi.
Yeah. He
was
Santa
obsessed with cleaning up New York.
Santa flew over a wedding between two cousins and saw Rudolph Giuliani as one of the happy cousins, and named his new reindeer Cousin Fucker, but later changed it to Rudolph.
He flew over, maybe the World War II connection could be he flew over London during the bombing and was like, not quite, but maybe with the two little letters on the end there.
God damn it.
Santa's kind of a dick, actually, now that I think about it.
Oh, man. And that's the alternate history of the Donner Party.
Great.
I
And we
also
tied
want to
it into
mention
Christmas.
that the pass where the Donner Party got stuck and like died and ate each other, that is now called Donner Pass.
Mm-hmm.
And the lake where most of the party in those like little shacks like went insane and all starved to death, that's now called Donner Lake.
Well, they earned it.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, did they?
They gave a great endowment to the local university. So, you know, of course that's also another monument we're not going to be getting rid of anytime soon. So, sorry, having some weird volume issues. Before we move on, we ask that you rate and review this podcast on your podcast service of choice because it's super helpful to us. It helps put more butts in the seats, metaphorically.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, I'll cut that. iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, wherever you listen to this, that'll help us get the attention we so crave. And you can always ask us a question or leave a comment at revisionistpodcast.com or at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Just search Revisionist Podcast on all of those, or just The Revisionist, probably. We're also a proud member of the Denver Podcast Network, along with such shows as Denver Orbit, an audio diary with different artists and musicians. That's really cool. Won last year's Westward Best of Denver, Best Podcast. So check out Denver Orbit.
A prestigious award that our podcast, First World Privilege Hour, that we are slowly releasing, was once nominated for.
Yes. Which I believe also someone who we knew from high school got mad at us at one point and used the non-insult, your quote, non-award-winning podcast, which is the biggest shrug of all insults.
Yeah, I mean, that describes almost every podcast.
First of all. But Jen, you are going to be the new creative writing teacher for Denver Rec Centers. If you want to talk about those classes.
Yeah, that is correct, Brian. I am going to be teaching two different sets of classes, starting New Year's Eve, actually. I'm going to be on the west side, so if you're in Denver and you have like $40, come take some of my writing classes. The Highland Rec Center on 29th and Osceola. I'm going to be there Mondays from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. It's 5 weeks, starting December 31st. And I'm going to be at the Scheitler Rec Center for an evening class. That is Sheridan and West 46th Avenue. And that's going to be Mondays from 6 to 8 p.m. And that one's going to be 4 weeks starting January 7th. So for more information or to sign up for those, go to denvergov.org/recreation.
And if you are in Denver and you have less than $40, your financial situation is dire, and you should sell whatever you're using to listen to this podcast immediately.
Yes. And that's $40 for the whole 5 weeks, too.
Yeah, it is. Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah. You also are the co-host with fellow friend of the show, Byron Graham, of the Mutiny Book Club podcast.
I am.
Which I have appeared on in the past.
Mm-hmm, that's right. And this month, we are reading An American Marriage, which was amazing. We are going to have the wonderful Allison Rose on the show to discuss it, and that's going to be recorded live at the Mutiny Information Cafe at 2 South Broadway on Sunday, December 30th at 4 o'clock.
Awesome.
So get your ass down there.
Exactly. As for me, listeners, with Jen Kolick here, I co-host Queen City Companion, an all-fall storytelling show, also at Mutiny. Big ups to the Mutes. at the first Thursday. Sorry, I got distracted by how dumb that was. The first Thursday of every month at 8 p.m.
Next one is Thursday, January 6th.
Yes. Thank you. So come check that out. It's always a really great show. And the last, for now, edition of my show, Know Your Shit, will be happening the night this is released, December 15th, at Comedy Room, which is sadly closing. So if you hear this in the morning and can make it out, please do, because we want to send it out with a bang, and hopefully soon we'll have a new home for that show. But Zach, I believe judgment falls to you for this episode.
Yeah. You know, the real history this time was one of the more well-researched ones we've ever had. Strangely, whenever we have our significant others on this show, it tends to be the ones that actually have research done. For some reason, comedians don't give a shit about thorough research of historical events. But
I mean, to be fair, I'm also a librarian.
Yeah.
So reading Wikipedia is my thing.
Regardless, but this is also has the bonus of the side story, the alternate, not actually detracting but adding to the main story. So it's one of them gimmies where I could vote for the alternate and kind of vote for both stories. So that's what am I gonna do?
Hey, gabagool! Hey.
Yay!
Jen, thank you. Listeners, the voting is now open on Patreon, so go ahead and do that. And I think that does it for this episode.
Merry holiday times.
Merry holiday, every person. I mean, I legitimately say happy holidays and think people should use really open terms, so I don't mean to make fun of it. But
maybe Brian will say have a jolly time at the end of the episode, but maybe not.
Who knows? That's up for future Brian.
Donner bless us, everyone.
From our family to yours.
Warm your hearth this holiday season.
Mm-hmm. Remember, lick that candy cane, stuff that stocking. Why are these accidentally
and as
sexual?
You cut your Christmas roast beast, remember the horrible story of a family that ate each other in the mountains.
Zach, thank you.
Of course, yep.
For everyone here at the Revisionist, I'm Brian Flynn.
I'm Zach Powers.
Have a jolly time. There, I
No, it
said
doesn't work. Go back to the old
Have a good time. Have a good time. Happy New Year.